Friendship is a very special thing in life, and it's never to be taken for granted. But sometimes friends, even best friends, don't get along. But if your friendship is strong enough, then you'll always find your way back together. This story proves that two friends can go through some crazy stuff and still stay friends forever. Annie and Lily had been friends forever. They grew up together and had been best friends and told each other everything, and they did everything together. Annie was a quirky, goofy, funny woman who was a bit down on her luck because her bakery had gone out of business. She lived with a brother and sister that were so weird that they took baths with each other, even though they were too big for the tub. Lily was strong and independent and was dating a man named Dougie. Annie and Lily did everything together. They even went to the park to exercise by watching a fit club instructor from far away. They wanted to exercise, but they didn't want to pay for the class. They would have gotten away with it, but the instructor saw them and scared them off.
He scares me.
Oh, me too.
But he's an excellent motivator.
It's true.
What are you looking at? Hey, if you want to take this class, you're going to have to pay for it like the rest. What are you? Dancing in the park. Dance class. You are not dancing. You are not dancing in the park. Go. Freeloaders. I'm coming over there.
Later that day, Annie went over to Lily's apartment and Lily had a huge engagement ring on. Lily was going to get married, and of course, she asked Annie to be her maid of honor and help her plan the entire wedding. Even though Annie had no money, she agreed because Lily was her best friend. A few weeks later, Annie pulled up to a big fancy building in her beat-up, dented, smelly old car. It was Lily's engagement party, and it was held in a big expensive room at a big expensive place. Annie was uncomfortable and she didn't quite fit in, but she took a breath and she walked in. She ran into Lily and they hugged, and then Lily took her around to meet the other bridesmaids. Lily's cousin Rita.
She has 3 kids now.
3 boys.
Wow.
So cute. They are cute, but when they reach that age, they're disgusting. They smell, they're sticky, they say things that are horrible, and they're...
Her friend from work, Becca, Dougie's sister, Megan, and Lily's friend, Helen. When Annie saw Helen, she was even more uncomfortable because Helen was so glamorous. She had long, gorgeous hair, a long, beautiful gown on, and she seemed just too perfect. Annie was intimidated. Intimidated means that she was scared Lily might like Helen more.
Helen, this is Annie.
Hi, there she is, maid of honor. So lovely to meet Lillian's childhood friend.
You're so pretty.
You're so cute. Oh, you're so sweet.
During the party, Annie stepped up to the microphone and she gave a nice, sweet, short speech about how much she loved Lily. But then Helen appeared with a microphone and she gave a long, emotional speech that was better. Annie came back on stage and she tried to top Helen's speech. They went back and forth, making up speeches and trying to top one another. And soon, they were both singing Lily's favorite song really badly. It was embarrassing and everyone just wanted it to stop. The rivalry between Helen and Annie didn't stop there.
Keep smiling, keep shining, knowing you can always count on me. For sure, that's what friends are for.
In good times and bad times, I'll be on your side forevermore. That's what friends are for.
Annie and Helen went and played tennis to try to get to know each other better, but it didn't work out. They both became overly intense and wanted to win the match so badly that they hit the ball at each other. Helen got hit with the tennis ball in the chest, in the head, and in the arm, and Annie got hit right in the middle of her chest and she went down. The match was over, but the bad blood was still there, and it only got worse. All of the bridesmaids got together at a restaurant that Annie picked. It looked a little run down and dirty, but the girls took a chance. They ate a ton of food and it all tasted really delicious. Helen didn't eat anything though, and it was a good thing that she didn't. After lunch, the ladies went to try on dresses for the wedding. Helen wanted a long, beautiful, expensive purple dress, while Annie wanted a simple, cheaper dress. They were all standing around in awe of Lily when she came out in a white wedding dress. They clapped and they said how beautiful she looked. But then, all of a sudden, Megan let out a huge burp and a little fart.
You look amazing.
I mean, that's
That's just so pretty. It makes my stomach hurt.
I don't know what to say. You look... Megan, are you okay?
My dress was probably just tight.
Oh my God. You got food poisoning from that restaurant, didn't you?
Then Rita let out a burp, and everyone looked at each other and immediately knew that they were all going to get sick from the food that they ate. They rushed to the bathroom and Rita threw up all over the toilet. Megan got there second and she needed to go to the bathroom and she panicked when Rita wouldn't move. So she threw everything off the sink and she went to the bathroom in the sink. It wasn't a pretty sight.
I need the toilet! I need the toilet! I need the toilet!
No, Megan. No! No! Look away! Megan, no!
Look away! What did we eat? Sinks are gone are coming out of me like lava!
Soon, Becca ran in with no time to waste and she spit up all over the back of Rita's head. It was a huge mess. There was no room for Lily in the bathroom, and so she tried to run across the street in her big white wedding dress. Cars honked at her, and she jumped back and forth, but she didn't make it. She realized it was happening, and so she knelt down in the middle of the street and let it happen. She went to the bathroom in the middle of the street and ruined the wedding dress.
It's happening. It's happening. It's happening. It's happening. It happened.
Oh no! Don't you dare ruin that dress!
Well, you're really doing it, aren't you?
So far, nothing was going right for Lily and Annie, but they had one last hope to get this wedding back on track: the bachelorette party. Before women get married, they go on a trip with all of their friends, and they try to have as much fun as possible. Annie wanted to do a simple, cheaper weekend at a lake house that Lily loved and had great memories of. Helen, though, stepped in and called all the girls and got them all excited about going to Las Vegas before Annie could say anything. Annie still had no money, but they had to fly to Las Vegas. On the plane, the rest of the girls sat in comfy, cozy, expensive seats while Annie sat in the back of the plane with strangers. She didn't like to fly, and the woman next to her was nervous as well. So 2 nervous women on a plane afraid of flying was not a good thing. Annie snuck up to her friends, and Helen gave her a sleeping pill to help her relax, but it made her all loopy and weird.
I feel like I'm excited and I feel relaxed and I'm ready to party with the best of them. And I'm gonna go down to the river.
She kept going up to the front of the plane, and she wasn't allowed to be up there. The flight attendants kept sending her back to her seat. This happened a couple times, and each time the flight attendants were more and more frustrated.
Okay, you especially. You have 3 seconds to get back to your seat.
Oh, you can't get anywhere in 3 seconds.
Well, you better try.
You're setting me up for a loss already.
Okay, thank you.
Whatever you say, stove.
It's Steve.
Stove. What kind of name is that?
Well, that's not a name. My name is Steve.
Are you an appliance?
No, I'm a man, and my name is Steve.
You're a flight attendant.
That's absolutely accurate.
Then, all of a sudden, Annie's voice comes over the loudspeaker and says that there's something on the wing. Of course there wasn't anything out there, but she ran towards the pilot and was tackled by an air policeman. She was arrested and the plane had to land immediately. The trip was ruined. Lily had had enough. She told Annie that Helen would take over with planning the wedding. Annie was hurt, but she understood. Annie stepped away and hadn't spoken to Lily for a couple weeks when she got a box in the mail inviting her to Lily's bridal shower. The box was expensive and way over the top, and even a butterfly flew out of the box. Annie rolled her eyes, but of course she was going to go. She arrived at the bridal shower only to find herself driving her beat-up old car into a mansion or a huge massive house. There were servants, champagne, chocolate fountains, puppies were given away as gifts, and a huge cookie in the shape of a heart that was the size of a car. Annie rolled her eyes again and felt the anger slowly rising that she was cut out of the planning. Lily opened her presents, and Annie sat quietly while Lily opened hers, and was moved by the gift. Annie went all around town and got Lily's favorite things from every place in town. It was thoughtful and it was wonderful. Helen stepped in and gave Lily a first-class ticket to Paris, totally smashing Annie's gift. Annie'd had enough and she blew up.
Are you kidding me? Paris?
Annie, what are you doing?
I told you about Paris, Helen. I told you about this whole idea.
Annie, calm down.
Lillian, what are you gonna go? You're gonna go to Paris with Helen now? What are you guys gonna ride around on bikes with berets and baguettes in the basket of the front of your bikes? Oh, how romantic. Lillian, this is not the you that I know. The you that I know would have walked in here and rolled your eyes and thought this was completely over the top. Look at this shower. Look at that cookie. Did you really think that this group of women was gonna finish that cookie? Really? Oh, you know what? That reminds me, actually. I never got a chance to try that cookie!
She yelled and she stomped outside. She threw the chocolate out of the chocolate fountain. She tried to tip it over, but it was too heavy, so she threw grass into it. She punched the big cookie. She made a huge scene. Lily and Annie yelled at each other, and Annie stormed off. Things didn't look good for their friendship, as Lily said not to come to her wedding. The day of the wedding, Annie got a knock on the door, and it was Helen. She slammed the door shut on her, but Helen blocked it and said that they couldn't find Lily, and everyone was worried. Annie knew where she might be, and her and Helen went to find her. On the way, Helen and Annie talked, and it turned out that Helen wasn't perfect. She had problems, and she had fears, and she was also jealous of Annie and her friendship with Lily, because Lily was all Helen had. Annie realized that she should give Helen a chance. Annie ended up finding Lily in her old apartment, hiding. Lily was scared of this big step in getting married and was sorry for hurting Annie. They hugged and made up, but there was one more problem. Lily's big fancy dress made by a famous designer was a mess. It was big and it was poofy and she looked like a big white bird with feathers. Annie and Lily laughed and they knew just how to fix it.
Don't you dare laugh. I cannot wear this dress.
Okay, don't panic. We'll fix it. We'll tweak it. I will not let you walk down that aisle unless you look perfect and beautiful, I promise.
Why, do you have a chainsaw and a blowtorch?
Lily made it to the wedding and it was beautiful. Helen had done an amazing job putting it together with lights, lasers, waterfalls, decorations, fireworks, and even Lily's favorite band sang her favorite song and everybody rocked out. After Lily and Dougie got into their limousine and drove away, Helen and Annie hugged and became friends after all. The end.